class. For today, there are no props required, but we will be spending majority of our time lower on the mat. So if you have sensitive knees or just know that you like a little extra cushion just to feel comfortable spending more time in that space, then go ahead and grab a blanket just to kind of cushion your mat and your practice space today. And whenever you have your space to get going, we're going to go ahead and start in child's pose at the back of our mat. And so when coming into this space, we're going to bring big toes together, knees nice and wide towards the edge of the mat. And just focus on bringing your hips toward your heels to start. Softening the tops of the feet, the ankles. Kind of have your hands propped up out in front of you to help relax the low back. And then once you start to feel settled, then you can let the torso get heavy between the thighs, letting the arms stretch out in front of you. With the goal, starting with just finding a bit of heaviness. Letting your torso fall between the thighs, maybe the forehead comes to rest onto the earth. Adjusting the width of your lower body as you need to get comfortable. And then once you start to settle down toward the earth, then you can start to walk those hands out just a little bit further. Keeping the focus on that anchoring between the hips and the heels, that rounding of the low back. And then just stretching from that space, moving and lengthening from that space as much as feels good for you today. Today's class is going to be focused on working through the hips, through the inner thighs, working on rotation a little bit, just movements that we don't necessarily access on our typical day-to-day. And just kind of moving from that space. We're not working into that space in isolation as most classes don't. We can involve really as much of the body as we truly want and as feels good. But just take the next few breaths here to arrive onto your mat, to settle your mind through your breath, and check in with yourself. Check in with your body, see how you're feeling, see how you're showing up to today's class. I always like to take the opportunity to focus the attention inward, because this time on your mat is for you, is for your body, is for the betterment of all the things in whatever capacity you're able to show up to today. On your next breath or so, maybe shimmying the hips side to side, almost like you're in your Shavasana at the end of class and you're kind of getting your body going a little bit more to, in that case, get back into your day. But now we're getting into our practice, into our movement. So waking the body back up, just swaying side to side. And nice and slow, start to walk those hands back toward you, coming back to where we started. Bringing those shins parallel to one another, and then making our way into tabletop. Tucking the toes, coming out of the ankles in that way, just a little bit, stretching through the soles of the feet. And in this tabletop position, you have the opportunity to work with your breath, whether you want to take cat-cow, traditional in the traditional sense, or if you want to take some barrel rolls, all with the intention of warming up the spine, incorporating a little bit of the hips and the shoulders as we do so. If you want to do a little bit of everything, Finding those barrel rolls, working through the side bodies, the rib cage. If you want to turn that into a cat-cow, but shifting your weight forward and back, take advantage of those moments of freedom. We'll have structure in our movements as we move forward. So find this as your little warm-up to check in a little bit further into how you're feeling and where might feel nice to have a little extra attention as we move through class. Another breath or two. Sitting into spaces that feel good. Exploring what maybe you haven't in a while. You're in your own space, so don't be shy. And one more breath. Making our way towards the center of our mat, toward our tabletop position. Finding a nice long spine, deep inhale. And exhale. On your next inhale, that right leg is going to extend long back behind you, keeping that belly button in toward the spine, keeping that soft press of the heel of the hands in toward the mat. So you're nice and long and supported here. Reaching that right heel back behind you. And then bend the right knee, drive that right knee toward the right elbow, stepping the foot outside the hand, toward the edge of the mat, and then bring yourself upright, pressing down through the back shin, top of the back foot. And if you like this wider stance, feel free to keep it unless you want to wiggle that right foot in just a step or two. And then from here, I want you to draw down with that tailbone lift up through the front of your pelvis so you feel a nice stretch through the front of that left leg. Keeping that, maybe shifting your weight forward just a little bit. And then coming back up. Shifting that weight forward, keeping the front of that low belly lifted. And then taking two more little weight shifts forward, really stretching in through the front of that left foot. And as you find your way back toward that tall half kneeling position, you're going to sneak that right hand just inside that right thigh. You're going to inhale, reach that left arm up and over, and then you're going to reach toward the right side of the room. Keeping that tuck under of that tailbone, lifting and reaching away from that left hip point. Come back up. Hands come back down to the earth. Drop the hands just inside that right foot. And we're going to take 3 rounds of cat-cow here. And it's going to feel a little goofy, but I want you to keep trying to draw that right hip back just a little bit so they stay even here. And then we're going to take an inhale, try to lift the chest, the tailbone up. Might feel a little restricted, but just work through it. Exhale, tuck under, round. Inhale, cow pose. Exhale, cat pose. One more round, inhale. Keep drawing that right hip crease back behind you best you can. Exhale, round, just knowing that your movement is going to be more limited than it typically is. Inhale back to center. Pluck that right foot off the mat. Right comes to meet the left. And then you can press yourself up and back into downward facing dog just to kind of even yourself out just for a moment. Don't overthink it. Just find stillness and symmetry here. And then roll over the toes, come back down. Find that tabletop position once more, untucking the toes. Inhale, that left leg, lifts right back behind you. Draw that belly button in. Drop that left hip point down just a pinch. Reaching through that left heel. Bend the left knee. Drive that knee toward the elbow. Plant the left foot outside the left hand. And then we're coming upright in that half kneeling position. Maybe wiggle the left foot in just a step or so. Lifting through the low belly, drawing that tailbone down toward the earth. Feeling that soft stretch of the right hip here, and then just slowly shifting your weight forward, keeping that lift, and then coming back. The movement's really, really small because we want to try to keep that pelvis in that same position as we shift forward and back. 2 more. And back up. Forward. And back up. Once you find that starting point, this is where that blanket might feel nice. If you feel like being on top of the knees in this way is uncomfortable, but when you are down on that bottom leg, just keeping in mind you're pressing down through the top of that back foot and that shin to help offload that knee as much as we can. But we're pressing down here, lifting through the belly, left hand inside the left thigh, right arm up and overhead, and then we're tilting over toward the left side. Opening and stretching all the way from that right hip point through the right fingertips. Come back up. Hands come inside that left foot. Maybe you want to wiggle back out towards the edge of the mat. And then drawing that left hip crease back just a little bit. And on that inhale, we're trying to lift that tailbone, dropping the belly beyond that left thigh, lifting the chest. And then exhale, rounding, trying to keep that left thigh in toward you, not letting it splay out. Inhale, lift the tailbone back, chest forward. Exhale, round. Inhale, last one. Exhale, round. Inhale back to that neutral position. Pluck that left foot out to meet the right. Tuck those toes, come off the knees, downward facing dog. And think of this as a reset. Nothing fancy to it. Roll over the toes, drop the knees. Find that tabletop position. Inhale, that right leg reaches back behind you. Bend the knee, right foot comes outside the right hand. Inhale. Arms reach up overhead, drawing that low belly up toward you. And as the hands come inside the right foot, we kickstand the left leg back behind us. Right hand stays down, left arm sweeps up and overhead. Keep drawing that tailbone to lengthen all the way through the spine. Press through that right foot, straighten through the right leg. Toes are going to face the long edge of the mat. Left hand comes down towards the back side of the mat as the right arm reaches up and overhead, coming into a fallen gate pose. Or like a modified side plank. Opening through that right side. Maybe a slight press of the hips forward with a slight reach of the right arm back behind you. And then we sweep the arms straight out in front. Reach the hands out. As you sit the hips back toward the heels, that right leg is still straight with the foot towards the top of the mat. And you can stay lifted here. You don't have to bring the hip all the way down to the heel. You can keep the hips lifted, almost like a downward facing dog of the upper body. And then walk the hands back underneath you, pressing through the heels of the hands. Inhale, right arm reaches up towards the sky, twist toward the top of the mat. Exhale, reach that right arm underneath the left. Turn the torso towards the left side or the back side of your mat. Inhale, reach up. Keep that belly button drawn in as we twist. Exhale, reach under and twist towards the back edge of the mat. One more inhale, reach. Open towards the right. Exhale, reaching toward the left. Hands come back inside that right foot. Click that heel back behind the toes. Right hand stays down. Inhale, that left arm sweeps up and overhead once more, like we're coming into a modified side angle pose because that back leg is still dropped down. A little press of those hips forward, lengthening through that left side body. Left hand comes back down to meet the right. Bring that back leg towards center. Hands plant. Pluck the right foot back to meet the left. Tuck the toes. Downward facing dog. One more breath. Roll over the toes, drop the knees back into that tabletop position. Now we're going to go through that same sequence on the other side. We're going to go through that whole sequence, another round each side. So if you feel like we're moving in places like a lot of lefts, a lot of rights, a lot of front, back, side to side, we're going to get another shot at it. So don't overthink it. Just move in a way that feels good as always. So on your next inhale, with all that said, that left leg is going to reach back behind you. Trying to keep those hips even, belly button drawn in. Bend the left knee. Left foot comes outside the left hand. Come on up. Come into that half kneel position. Arms sweep up overhead. Pressing the hips forward, feeling that nice stretch inside on the front of that right thigh. And then the hands are going to come inside that left leg, that left foot, kickstand the back leg, adjust yourself as you need, and then that right arm is going to sweep up and over as the chest faces the long side edge of the mat. Keep drawing that tailbone down, belly button in, reaching through that right arm, and then press through that left leg. Right hand to the back of the mat. Left heel behind the toes. As we reach left knee, but the heads are not falling. We get pose. For that modified side plank. Really expanding through that left side. And then keeping the legs as they are, we're sweeping the hands out in front of us towards the long edge of the mat, sitting the hips back. And you can stay lifted here. Find a space that gives you a nice sensation within that inner thigh on the left-hand side. Trying to keep that hip crease drawn down towards the mat. One more breath. Go ahead and bring the hands underneath the shoulders. On your next inhale, left arm lifts up towards the sky. Exhale, left arm reaches under the right. Inhale, twist towards that top edge of the mat. Exhale, reach under and across. One more inhale, lift. Exhale, reach under. Inhale, lift up. And then on your next breath, we click that left heel behind the toes, keeping that back leg kickstand. Left hand plants, right arm sweeps up and overhead, finding that modified side angle once more. Trying to use that connection upper body to lower body. You can come propped up here if that helps to turn the chest towards the long edge of the mat, reaching the right arm up and overhead. Hands plant inside that right foot. Kickstand the right leg back. Adjust yourself as you need to bring the left to meet the right. Tuck the toes, downward facing dog. Roll over the toes, drop the knees. From your tabletop, inhale, that right leg lifts back behind you. Bend the knee, right foot outside the right hand. Inhale, cow pose. Exhale, cat. Inhale, neutral spine. Arms sweep up overhead. And then maybe this time we sink a little bit further into that right leg. We sink further, we sink further, we sink further. And then as the right hand comes inside that right foot, you kickstand that back leg. Left arm sweeps up and overhead, open towards the left side of the room. Press through that right leg. Modified plank, side plank towards the back edge of the mat. Right arm up and overhead. Sweep the arms out in front of you. Find that stretch of the inner thigh. Sweeping our way back towards the top of the mat. Bring that right heel behind the toes. Right hand plants inside the right foot. Left arm up and overhead. Modified side angle. Left hand comes down. Bring that left leg back to neutral. Inhale, sweep arms up and overhead. Open the front of that left hip once more. Now really let the hips fall this time. Open, expand through the front of the body. And then plant the hands. Tuck the back toes, lift the back knee. Right foot comes back to meet the left. Downward facing dog is where you reset. Roll over the toes, drop the knees. From your tabletop position, inhale, left leg lifts. Bend the knee, left foot outside the left hand. Hands stay inside that left foot. Inhale, cat pose, or cow pose, excuse me. Try to find whatever movement exists in this space. And then exhale, round. Inhale, back to neutral spine. Arms up overhead. Tucking that tailbone just a little bit, maybe a little baby shift to start. Maybe we start to lean forward, lean forward, lean forward. Left hand comes down, right leg kickstands. Right arm stays up and overhead as you find that side angle. Press through that front foot. Come back into that modified side plank. Left arm reaches up and overhead. Sweep out in front of you, sit those hips back. Stretching through that left inner thigh. Come back up, left hand plants inside that left foot, right arm sweeps up and overhead, side angle. Drop the chest down, right hand comes to meet the left. Bring that right leg back to center. Inhale, sweep up. And exhale, send the hips forward. Really drop down here in this space. Just being mindful of the low belly to support that low back into this space. And then hands come to the mat. Tuck the back toes, lift the back knee. Left foot meets the right. Downward facing dog. We're going to come off the knees for our last round. So on the inhale, the right leg lifts. Exhale, right foot comes outside the right hand. Inhale, arms sweep up overhead. Still lifting through that low belly, drawing that tailbone down. Kickstand that back leg or bring that heel behind the toes. Drop the right hand, side angle. Straighten through that front leg. Lift the torso. Reverse your triangle. Triangle pose. Bump those hips back in space. Reach, 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 reach until the right hand plants, left arm up towards the sky. As the arms sweep out in front of you, pivot that right foot to meet the long edge of the mat, wide-legged forward fold. Lifting those sit bones, that tailbone toward the sky as the head drops heavy. Walk the hands to frame that right foot. Keep the back leg lifted. Inhale, crescent lunge once more. Really let that back heel sink toward the earth as you lift that left hip bone. Hands to the earth. Right foot comes back to meet the left, downward facing dog. Inhale, the left leg lifts. That left foot can come inside or outside the left hand, whatever stance is most comfortable for you. Either way, we're finding a crescent lunge, whether it's a more narrow or a wider base. Sink the hips down, drive that right heel back, pull that left hip to meet the right. Drop the back heel toward the center of the mat, left hand plants or props up on your left thigh. Right arm sweeps up and overhead, side angle. Using that connection between upper and lower body to twist the chest. Push and straighten through that front leg, coming back, reverse triangle. Strong through the legs, lifted through the upper body, lengthening through the torso. Come forward, triangle pose. As you come upright and move through that space, we bump the hips back. We reach the left arm. We maximize our space until we drop that left hand down. That right arm reaches toward the sky. Strong within the lower body, lifted through the torso. Sweep the arms down, out in front of you toward that long edge of the mat, wide-legged forward fold. Lift through the inner arches, strong through the legs. Deepen with your breath. Arms come forward, or hands come forward to frame that left foot. Back leg stays lifted. Find that crescent lunge. Hands flame that left foot steps back, downward facing dog. Roll over the toes, drop the knees. Hips to heels. And just take a moment to settle here. We're going to take a slightly different cool down than we typically do, or a wind down, I should say. And so we're going to start by coming into a bear sit. So we're going to come toward the center of our mat, finding a seat. And if you did have a blanket with you for today's class for that extra support, you might find that that's helpful to find this particular position to give you a little bit of a boost to come up and onto your sit bones. So if you have that available, you can do that. If you feel like you just need a little baby boost, you can always just roll the edge of your mat if it's something that you feel like you'd benefit from. Otherwise, you're going to use your hands back behind your hips, lean back just a hair, and bring those feet nice and wide coming into that bear sit. Finding those sit bones, finding that tall spine. And just to start, we're just going to windshield wiper the knees, right to left. And you're just going to move at your own pace. Just as we would if we were laying down on our backs, just kind of working through our low back, through our hips as we finish off of class. We're just doing this in a seated position. Takes a little bit more movement out of the low back especially if in this position you're able to keep those shoulders, that chest facing toward the front of you and not letting it twist with your legs. So if you're able to do that, you're getting more movement into those hips and taking some away from that low back. Or at least intensifying the sensation within those hips. And once you get back to that right side, we're going to hang out there. And we're actually going to face that right thigh. So we're going to do the best that we can to find that 90-90 position. Use those hands to frame that right thigh as much as you need. I like to kickstand my right hand outside my right hip and have my left hand on my left hip crease. Because what we're going to do from here is just kind of rock back and forth. The focus is that back leg for this particular movement. So starting nice and tall as best we can. And then you're going to drop and sit back into that left hip. And you're going to let your chest follow. And then you're going to come back forward, chest faces that right thigh. And then as you sink into that left hip, the chest starts to face that left thigh. Come back forward. Maybe a little squeeze that left glute if you need, if you find that that's supportive. And then go ahead and sink down. 2 more. Face that right thigh. Drop into the left. Right thigh. Drop into the left. And hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and open that left leg out and switch sides. So we're going to come over toward that left side. Again, I like to have my one hand kickstand outside my left hip and the other one on the crease of my right. And so we're starting by kind of rolling over on top of that left side. Chest is lifted. Maybe a squeeze of that right glute if that helps. And then you're going to drop into that right hip, face the right thigh. Rock forward. And back. Coming forward, roll forward. And back. We got 2 more. Roll forward. And back. And then sensation might be intense, so move through it as best you can. Roll forward. And back. And then go ahead and press that right foot open. Just do a little shimmy shake with those knees. And then go ahead and bring the soles of the feet together to touch. Trying to get right on top of those sit bones. Bring the heels toward your inner thighs. Find a nice tall seat. Draw those knees out and away from you. Nice long spine, forward fold. With every inhale, you're feeling length. With every exhale, you're drawing just a little bit closer toward your feet. And every breath only has to bring a very minuscule amount of progression. So don't feel like every inhale or exhale brings you a significant portion of the way further along. It's gradual, it's subtle, it's soft. Inhale all the way out. Bring those legs out in front of you. Give them a shake. Kind of let your chest open up a little bit as you have your hands kickstand back behind you. Feel free to wiggle the legs in and out. And that is class for today. With today's class, if you'd like to take a few moments in a supported bridge or just a supported Shavasana, you are more than welcome. You're also more than welcome to go ahead and find a wall and prop your legs up against the wall just to kind of relax those hips and decompress the low back, all the good things for at least, 5-10 minutes if you have the time. It's just a nice way to decompress and kind of round things out to really quiet the mind, keep your focus on your breath and your body as you get back into your day. As always, I appreciate y'all so much for practicing with me and being here. If you liked today's video, please feel free to go ahead and throw a like, a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and I look forward to seeing y'all next time. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.